The Property Show is offered to you by Thomas Oliver. Outstanding financial services. No confusions, just solutions.
The Property Show is produced by Ilol Ivanu and presented by Carl Knight, partner at the Kings Group Estate Agency.
Tonight's edition of The Property Show. Thank you for all tuning in and listening to it. Hopefully this is not the first time you've listened, but if it is, welcome. Tonight we're going to be talking about first-time buyers and good things, bad things, issues and problems that being a first-time buyer can create. Just to see if there's anybody out there who would like to phone in, and if you've got any questions about maybe you're thinking about going out and buying property for the first time, or you've got children who are reaching that age where you want to try and help them for their first purchase, get on the ladder, then please give us a call. The number is 0208 346 3345. That's 0208 346 3345. We'd love to hear from you this evening. So, welcome to everybody. Got with me tonight 3 guests. First of all, we've got Royden Weeks, the Kings Group Estate Agency Sales Director. Evening, Royden.
Good evening, Carl.
Royden, they're telling me that some of your greatest strengths are problem solving. Is that right?
Yeah. I thrive on trying to simplify things for the consumers. So yeah, I like to solve problems for people and get them buying.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that you'll be hearing from a couple of people this evening. You'll need to solve their problems. So we'll see how good you do. Vijal, lovely to have you with us. Vijal Goranjani. Did I get that right this time, Vijal?
Yeah, that's the better offer. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Making it bit by bit. You know, practice makes perfect, as they say. So, what's your sort of key characteristics? Let's not go into too many, just a couple or do.
I would say unique and tailor-made solutions to the client. So basically analysing the client and what actually he wants, not just doing a generic solution.
So as God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, you use him in that proportion at Thomas Oliver, yeah?
Exactly.
Okay. That's good. And we've got with me Mario, who's the Deputy Retail Distribution Director at My Home Move. Pisorius, is that correct?
Pisorius, yeah, that's right, Cole. Good pronunciation.
Oh, well, I'm learning bit by bit. So, Mario, welcome. First time on the show. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us a few little things about yourself and My Home Move so that the listeners understand who you are?
I'm from a company called My Home Move. We're the largest recommender of conveyancing, and we look after conveyancing across the country, England and Wales.
Can I just start? What's conveyancing?
Conveyancing is like it's I guess your alternative term will be the sort of the legal process of buying and selling a home, remortgaging a home, things like that. So as I said, I've been there for 15 years. I live in Leicester, so it was a nice little journey southwards this evening to be with you guys. But more importantly, Kalispera se olus. As you probably gathered from the name, I am from Cypriot origin, so my parents from there, born there, and I was born over here. Yeah, they are. You know, we've got some obviously family across this North London stretch where will be some familiar ears listening into me. But my parents are from Cyprus. My dad's from Rizogashpason, for those that know that place, and my mum's from a village in Larnaca called Druli.
Oh, would you like to say hello to them?
Yeah, Kalispera se olus, telefonate, pasas milis.
Fantastic. It's lovely to have you with us, and welcome. Thanks. So let's get straight into it, because we're obviously always going to be pushed for time, and as we found last time, that as we get chatting, the programme can run away from us. So first question is, Vijal, what is the definition of a first-time buyer? I don't think we even know that anymore, do we?
Well, it's difficult. It actually depends on who you're talking about. So a mortgage lender will have a different definition of a first-time buyer than the legal term. So the actual legal term is if you have never bought or owned a property anywhere in the world. That is the definition of a first-time buyer in the legal sense. But for a mortgage purpose, actually, some people will class you as a first-time buyer if you've not had a mortgage or a property in the last 3 years.
Right. So that's really clear.
Yeah.
When you say some people, do you mean lenders? Do you mean legal side?
I mean some lenders. So some lenders, basically, the reason they say that is because first-time buyers, they offer different products. So sometimes if you've not owned a property and haven't done anything for the last 3 years, you may actually get a preferential rate with some lenders because they'll class you as a first-time buyer. But it also is on the flip side, they will look at it that you haven't had credit in the last 3 years, so they could treat you differently as well.
Okay, so what if you've not bought a property before, though, and you're going to buy a property, you're not going to live in it, you're going to rent it out, so it's going to be a buy-to-let property. Are you classed as a first-time buyer there?
You're still classed as a first-time buyer there in terms of buying the property, but in terms of stamp duty purposes...
Right.
That's the key, and basically you wouldn't get the first-time buyer exemption, but you wouldn't pay the additional 3% on the property purchase because it's not a second property.
So for first-time buyers, there's some good news and some bad news there then?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I think most people are buying for first-time buyers probably to live in, but did you find that, Mario?
The vast majority are going to be buying to move into, so... And you can understand why the government's view is, the commercial, you're buying it as a buy-to-let, it's a commercial gain, I guess. So, you shouldn't get the benefits of somebody who wants to move into a house and I guess ultimately, raise a family, do whatever they need to do. So you can see why that's there.
But it does mean also that you can let out one of your rooms. So if you buy a 3-bed house and you let out one of your rooms, you're still a first-time buyer. You still get the stamp duty exemptions. You're still treated as a residential property and you're living there.
Okay, you need to declare that, though, Royden, do you?
Yes, you do. Yeah, you'd need to declare up to a certain amount. I think smaller amounts, like you're getting sort of £200 a month. In my opinion, you generally can get away with not having to declare that. But it's over a certain amount, and there is a lot of websites you can look at for that. Then you definitely need to declare it because it's an extra income.
Okay, the government obviously is trying to make hay. Say it's done a great job for its budget cut in the last budget in November, and say how it's helped first-time buyers. Do we think that has? I mean, according to an article in the Financial Reporter website by Ros Jones on the 26th of April, stamp duty cut on properties under 300,000 announced in the November budget has benefited 69,000 first-time buyers. I mean, so the facts seem to say that. Have we found that?
Through my experience, yeah, definitely. Because my client base in the last 3-4 months has been majority first-time buyers. A lot of investors have kind of dropped off the market in terms of buying the investment properties due to these tax changes. But what they are doing is gifting more deposits to their children, which are first-time buyers, which is helping them get on the market.
Okay. There's quite a lot of stats around where first-time buyers are concerned. I think we've sort of noticed that. Mario, I know that My Home Move commissioned a fair amount of reports into this. What do we know about?
Well, I think obviously the volume of work we deal with, we capture a lot of data in terms of trends and things like that. So, the report we did on first-time buyers last year showed that, in the London area, we have sort of the three main things around, first-time buyers. 60% currently are renting privately. 14% were still living with family, and then the other big figure was 23% renting through a housing association or local authority. So I think there's the first-time buyers, they're sort of there waiting. The government have done a number of changes to try and encourage more, and obviously we've mentioned already, touched upon the changes to stamp duty. Up to the £300,000 mark for a first-time buyer. The relief there, and that has helped. There's other things, help to buy ISAs, things like that, which I know we'll come on to. But all of that is geared to helping that first step onto the ladder.
Okay, so I'll say again, if there's any first-time buyers out there got any questions, it doesn't matter, don't worry about it. You're worried about it, you think it's a silly question, whatever. Sometimes silly questions are really important to us. Please call us on 0208 346 3345. We'd love to hear from you, and we're really interested to try and help you with any issues and problems. So, Royden, being a first-time buyer, is this a good time in the areas that we operate into to be a first-time buyer, or is it a bad time?
I'd say it's a good time to be a buyer at the moment. First-time buyer, great. Obviously, we cover quite a broad spectrum for our group, so some of our Essex areas and just into Hertfordshire areas are a lot cheaper. If you're in London with some of our offices there, then again, a first-time buyer, you're still looking at quite high sort of prices. I mean, our average in a Hackney area is like you're looking at just under 500,000, which isn't really what I see as a core first-time buyer. But if you go to areas like Harlow, Church Langley, and just into Cheshunt, then it's a great it's great for first time buyers at the moment because there's a lot of choice out there, and with some of the deals that are available, then you can get on the ladder and get yourself a good rate.
Okay, Vijay, according to an article in the Times with the 28th by Tom Knowles, 28th of April, you've got to earn a salary of 100,000 if you want to be a first time buyer in London.
That doesn't shock me. That's talking about, like you said, buying for 500,000, because at the end of the day, the max you can get is roughly 5 times your income. So 100,000 gives you a 500,000 mortgage, and that's basically roughly
should people really be stretching themselves that amount?
No, what we're seeing is a lot more people move to Cheshunt, Harlow, the sort of outskirts. What I've seen is London expand. That's what I would call it. London has expanded. The transport links now go further than just London.
So the M25 used to be a 34-inch belt, and now it's turning into a 42-inch belt. Is that what we're saying?
It will only get bigger as well.
Yeah, we've all got a little bit bulging over the sides these days, haven't we, I suppose, whether you're... I was just about to come to you. I just thought to... Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We all need to get on a diet, do a bit more exercise, keep it there. So, Mario, have you... how do you sort of see what is a typical first-time buyer? What sort of things?
Well, you see, I think there's lots of things with to consider. The first-time buyers, when they're looking to buy. Again, some statistics that we did, showed that 59% would prefer to buy a new property. I think
brand new?
New build, new build
What
property.
do you think that is, mate?
Well, let's be honest. The incentives are there. The big Help to Buy does help out, and I think that's a good way to get onto the ladder, which obviously isn't available if you are buying a second-hand home as such, if we call it that. Mm-hmm. It's only for the new build market. So clearly there is a way where they can get up to sort of 40% in this part of the world.
Sorry to interrupt. So is that government-led that's pulling people down to the first-time buyers wanting to buy new builds, or is that actually first-time buyer? I'd be interested if there's any first-time buyers or anybody thinking about buying out there, just to give me a call and let me know, are you being influenced by the government Help to Buy scheme? Or is it a case that, no, that is, you do want something that's new and no one else has lived in? I mean, I think on the last programme Vijay said compared new builds to new cars.
Yeah, because they drop in value as soon as you buy them. And what we've seen over the past is we've had a very good market. So it's always picked it back up very, very quickly. Now the market's not the same, it's more stable. So I've not seen as many new builds today as I did kind of last year. There was a lot more interest last year. But I feel even first-time buyers, they're a bit wary of new builds these days. But saying that, at the end of the day, this is a place you're going to live in. It's not done for investment purposes. People fall in love with something that's new. That's the key.
Right. Just interrupt. I would like to see so many more deals though for second-hand homes, because using the car analogy there, the reason why you have your car and you go and buy a better car is because you're able to sell your old car, and I think that it's all kind of aimed at new builds, and new builds is great, but at the same time it doesn't sort of get the homeowner the ability to move upwards.
Well, I think we also go back to the fact that new builds is great. The government's concentrating on that, but are they not filling the pockets of the fat cats?
Yeah. I mean, there's an argument.
The Persimmon Homes and Barrett's, and I mean, don't get me wrong, these guys do great jobs, but are they not? Are the shareholes of these businesses? Are they not the ones winning out?
Some people have said it's help to sell as opposed to help to buy. Let's be honest. So, but that's the other thing that you need to bear in mind with the Help to Buy scheme is that if the value of the property rises, and let's hope that they are going to rise slowly, steadily, in a manageable way, the share the government have put in will also rise. So you need to bear that in mind as well when you go down that route. Is that the share the government has put in? If the value of the property goes up, then technically the pounds and pence of that share has also risen. So that's something else. And obviously since this scheme was launched, I think it was April is the first set, because you get this sort of 5-year interest-free period that you get, the grace that the government give you. When this was first launched 5 years ago, now there'll be a few people who have to start paying back.
So that will be the interesting part, because a lot of people forget about the government loan side because they've not been paying it.
So have they budgeted and things like that?
Do they even know what they're paying? That will be the interesting.
It's up every year as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, the problem is it's not actually the mortgage advisor that sorts that part out, it's the developers that sort out the government loan bit. So that's what makes it worse, because they're meant to give all the stats and figures. Now, I highly doubt they do.
Well, I think, as I say, there's pros and cons to it, and I think ultimately, you just have to depend on the circumstances and of the client and what they go with.
Okay, we're going to go to a break, but just before we go to that break, I just want to leave you with this question, guys, and this is what I'm going to need your answers when we come back. First-time buyers, what do they need to ask themselves before they go and buy? We'll go to the break.
Thomas Oliver, a representative of Openwork, prides itself on high-caliber quality service, with our senior advisor Vishal Gurajani at the forefront. Whether you're seeking advice on a mortgage, life insurance or a pension, we have the solutions for you. At Thomas Oliver, our financial advisors have a collective experience of over 100 years in the industry. We go above and beyond, trying to meet our clients' requirements in achieving their desired outcome in a friendly and efficient manner. Thomas Oliver is shortlisted for this year's Estas Awards as a mortgage advisor. Thomas Oliver with branch offices across North London, East London, Hertfordshire and Essex. For further information, please call 01707 872 000 or visit thomasoliveruk.co.uk. Thomas Oliver, outstanding financial services, regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. You are listening to The Property Show, produced by Iro Levanu and presented by Carl Knight, partner at the Kings Group Estate Agency.
Welcome back to The Property Show. I'm sure you've all been and fixed yourself a cafe there in the small break we've had. So, straight back into this, guys. I left you a question before the break, and that question was, first-time buyers, what do they need to ask themselves? Mario, what's important the first-time buyer ask themselves, prepares prior to going out and starting to buy a property?
Well, I think as Vish, I'm sure we'll touch upon, obviously checking the budgets and things like that in terms of how much you can afford, the costs. Buying a freehold property, a leasehold property, the costs, in line with those that you're going to pay, and the differences there. So making yourself aware of that.
What are the major differences between a leasehold and a freehold property in terms of the purchase of it? Yeah,
so in terms of a freehold, you're going to obviously transfer the money across. The property's going to be yours, and for the vast majority of freehold properties, that's it. You'll just be paying your normal bills and your council tax, etc. Leasehold different, typically with flats, and obviously in this part of the world, a lot of first-time buyers, it's a flat that they're looking at. So I think some of the things to bear in mind with buying leasehold property is some of the costs which will come and will only be found out sort of midway through a transaction. And when you've agreed to buy it, the paperwork started to go out in terms of the legal side. Costs that a landlord or a freeholder managing agent that will charge you, deed of covenant fees, notice fees. These are all charges which, solicitor won't be able to, or a conveyancer won't be able to sort of give you at the start, because it's something which is provided later on down the line from a seller solicitor. So I think, having that in mind if you are going down the route of a leasehold property, because, potentially you're going to have to budget for an additional £500 to £600 on top of your legal costs. It's something to go into and you kind of bear that in mind, especially, as I said, in this part of the world where so many first-time buyer properties are leasehold flats, etc. So
should first-time buyers really research, seeked out their legal conveyancer, solicitor prior to really going out?
You need to, I guess, the idea is you make yourself as an attractive buyer. You'll go to see a mortgage advisor, get your mortgage offer in principle. The other thing that you want to do is go and see, research who you want to use from a legal perspective and the conveyancing side. So, get yourself legally prepared. An agent says to you, what's your situation? I've got my mortgage offer in principle, I've got my solicitors ready to go. So I think, doing that, and also the type of, service you want. Do you want your conveyancer or your solicitor to be a high street firm? Do you want them to be a 9-to-5 operation? Or do you want something a bit more modern, a bit what we offer at Admire Home Move, more tech-driven, the ability to check your file whenever you want on the move, none of this kind of, I'm going on holiday so nothing's going to happen, because you take your file with you. All of that, which, let's be honest, more and more larger organisations, your First Directs, people like that, forcing, not forcing, they're given the choice ultimately for clients to sort of transact in a remote way, and we're doing aspects of that as well in the conveyancing process, and for a lot of clients it suits their lifestyle and what they expect.
You're telling me you get a lot of people who go online at 3 o'clock in the morning and
check their conveyancing. Exactly that 24/7, exactly. So
Vish, you do that when you're conveyancing at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Definitely not.
He's too busy sleeping. Yeah, he's too busy sleeping.
I must admit, when I use a service, I did do it quite late because it was just ideal for me to check later on rather than kind of during the activities of the day, and then obviously just got over the kids and whatnot. So I can see the merits in that.
And that's why I think, you just decide, the type of service you want to work with. So and then you make that decision, and then, as I said, you then start to view properties and make yourself as an appealing buyer.
Okay, Royden, what do you think first-time buyers should ask themselves? What question, or what bit of advice would you give them?
I could be all day talking about advice, but
please don't, Royden, please.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I think realistic in their expectations. I see too many first-time buyers that want the best house in the best road for the cheapest money, and I think that you've got to be realistic with pricing, but you've got to be realistic as also with what's affordable. You might not, you're not going to be there probably for the rest of your life. You're probably going to be there for a short, to mid-range of period of time, so you can afford to buy 1 or 2 bedroom flat that's affordable in the right area, and live in it, gain some equity, and then obviously look to move on.
Is that the point? Is that the point though? Really, about first-time buyer, it's all about getting the hardest thing in anything is the start. So is it not the case with in a first-time buyer? It is, as they say, putting your foot on that first rung of the ladder. Yeah, is that not what it's all about?
I strongly believe that. I mean, if I go back to my own experience, just getting on the ladder, was tough at the time. But once we'd done that, it was easier to then move on from that. Whereas if we'd have just held back, we'd have missed opportunity after opportunity, and who knows where we'd have been.
So, Vij, coming to you on finance or whatever, I mean, before I maybe take some of your fizz away from you, but I would have thought the hardest thing for first-time buyers is getting that deposit together.
Yeah. So one of the things is getting that deposit together, working out your budget, because actually a deposit has a big impact on your budget, not only in the sense of obviously how much do you have, but also in the fact that it affects the lending amount. The bigger deposit you have, the more you can get on a mortgage as well. So
if someone's buying in North London, let's say a 1-bedroom flat. Let's start down in that area. What sort of money are we looking at, Royden?
You're probably looking North London, 200, 250 for one.
Okay, 1-bed flat. So 250. What sort of deposit are you going to need, Vish?
I would say a minimum. You can do it on a 5% deposit, don't get me wrong, but realistically you'd want a minimum of 10% because that's where the rates are really
So where's
good.
that money coming from? Because I don't see many people of in the age of 20, 23 walking around with 25, 35,000 pounds hanging out their pocket. I know.
Well, first-time buyers are 35 now anyway, so no 23-year-olds.
But for the younger people that are looking to buy, then usually it comes from mum and dad. Okay. Usually we get a gifted deposit. If it's not from mum and dad, it's usually from older brother or older sister, uncle or auntie. That's just the way it is, because you're right, they've only been saving up for 2 years. They're probably on 30, 40 grand a year. And how are you going to save up 25 grand?
They talk about the bank of mum and dad, but what I've been hearing recently is the bank of GP, grandparents. Is that something more than anything?
Yeah, because you're forgetting the older generation tends to have properties with a lot more equity, because usually they often don't do a lot with it. They don't usually refinance. That's what I tend to see in the older generation.
Well, I'm doing a lot with mine.
You're not that old yet. You're not that old
just
yet.
aged yourself.
Yeah. You'd be surprised. I've just aged well.
But that's what I tend to see. It's kind of, they've got the 5 to 10 properties in their portfolio, and they've got very low gearing. I'm talking about 40%. So you can get the extra 25 grand out of that quite easily.
I think also as well, we've seen property prices in the last sort of 6, 7, 8 years go up, double in price in that area. So, maybe there's this scenario that if people leave it, they're going to come into inheritance tax anyway. I mean, it's quite, I think, reasonable to assume that people who've lived in their last house maybe 30 years in the North London area are probably looking at sitting on a property, a 3-bed semi of around $500,000, if not more, without any other assets. So maybe there's an ability, and it is a good time to maybe think about helping out their grandchildren.
And I was actually talking to a client earlier today, and basically she was talking about bringing her dad on the mortgage to help for affordability, and I was like, have you thought about inheritance tax? Because eventually your dad is going to want to get rid of that property.
That's a really good point.
So it's kind of, you've got to do future planning as well. Because what is the point of gaining 30 grand and putting someone older on a property, but then you've got to pay 40% after he passes away? That's ridiculous.
Would you say that grandparents are scared to do the refinance needed to give their grandchildren the money needed, and should they be scared?
I would say they're a lot more risk averse. I would say the younger generation have grown up with credit cards, gaining finance. To be able to do anything, you have to get finance in the younger generation because you're not paid enough. The older generation, it wasn't so much like that because, like you said, properties were cheaper back then. The wages were more accommodating to property prices. So they're not used to the lending process as much. So I would say they're more risk averse, 100%. But it's about seeking out the right advice. And at the end of the day, when I talk to clients, I spend a good hour with them on the initial appointment, just so they're comfortable, so they know who I am, so they know where I'm coming from, and they can see all the opportunities.
Okay, Royden, where is a good location? Bearing in mind our listeners, where would you suggest that people think about for first-time buyers?
Well, it just depends on what your budgets are. Our cheaper area at the moment is the Essex area. That's Harlow. We're looking at
which is the Balls, where we go from 34 to 38.
Well, I don't know about the Balls, but you're looking at your average house price is 200,000. That's obviously you're looking at houses, not flats. So obviously a little bit cheaper. So it's very, very affordable for what would be a normal first-time buyer, in my opinion. Also, the links into London are very good. You have a National Rail, M11, M25, very accessible. So I'd say if I was a first-time buyer now that earned in and around the £30,000 bracket, that I'd certainly be looking at Harlow as a place to buy. If I've got more, maybe I've moved to North London. Still can get some good value there at maybe 300,000.
I was going to say the experience I've had with family that I've got in this part of the world is they are going to the other side of the M25 where they're getting more value for money. So I think you've got to look at it in the long run. And when people sometimes worry about moving to just the other side of it, whether it's Harlow, Cheshunt, it's not in London. I mean, let's be honest. It's sort of 10-15 minutes. The traffic can be a pain at times, but you're going to get a lot more for your money, so you have to make that call and maybe sort of cast your net.
Well, you can be in central London, between 20 minutes and 45 minutes.
Exactly that
from Harlow. So obviously there's going to be train and sometimes issues, but in general, it's not that big of a hassle.
And you're in the countryside.
There is some countryside out there. There's a lot of grass.
Exactly.
Very green out there. Very lively. It's good for families as well, which is it's most important.
I don't think first-time buyers are that bothered about looking out their window. I remember when I was a child, my parents saying, "Look at the lovely view there." Funny enough, that wasn't quite what was.
Well, I think if you look at it from that point of view, then maybe no. But a lot of first-time buyers are looking at their family, in the future, looking at having children, and if you've got good countryside, good location, good schooling. Then that's going to be stuff that's going to sell it to your future planning first-time buyer.
Okay, I'm just thinking a little bit further on. So let's say they've found the property, they've gone through the process, it's coming close to exchange of contracts, the final bit. First-time buyers always get a little bit worried. What should they be worried about?
No. I think the key thing is, we're such on gifted deposits. There can be a curveball thrown to a conveyancer or solicitor at the 11th hour, just before exchange, when the deposit comes in, and the deposit actually it's a gift, and it's coming from mum and dad, and they led the advisor or the estate agent, and then the conveyancer is coming from my account. It technically did come from your account, but your mum and dad put it in your account before it came to us. So that then you have to think about the kind of in this day and age, the anti-money laundering identification.
I was going to say, why is that a problem? Surely your family, I don't know. I mean, I would have thought family give money around all the time. Why is that a problem?
Yeah, it's obviously in the era that we live in. Everything has to be checked and the source of those funds. So it's not that it's in the vast majority of the cases it's all fine and hunky dory. It's just those final checks which just delay it. And then, especially when you're trying to move in for a certain date, so you have to be upfront and honest at the start of the case. So if you are getting some money from your parents, your grandparents, or wherever, just tell your conveyancer, your solicitor where it's coming from, and they'll get the right identification through. And as long as Vish on when he's doing the lender side, the lender is aware of it, then it's not going to hold it up too much.
I think from an agency point of view as well, it's always good for us to know the ins and outs of what we're dealing with, because there's nothing worse than when we're giving sellers one piece of information where we've not had all the facts, and then we're then having to give them that information later on down the line. It doesn't help the situation, and not just from our point of view, but when they view the buyer and the information they probably should have given them from the outset.
Yeah, and it's a stressful time, and obviously, if you're involved in a big chain and all of a sudden you're the hold-up in the chain and things like that. So, as I said, it's just there is just say how it is, and obviously, we
there's nothing to be scared of.
No, exactly that.
No.
So, coming up, what's your final piece of advice, Vish, from the finance for first-time buyers?
I would say make sure you seek advice first. So basically, go and speak to a mortgage broker, spend some time with him, go through your finances, and I'm not just talking about the mortgages, go through the council tax, the utility bills, the solicitor costs, absolutely everything.
That's what a financial advisor should do, is that right?
A good financial advisor, yes.
And where do we find financial advisors, Royden?
We've got one in-house in all of our offices. Obviously, we do work alongside Thomas Oliver as well, so you can get as much advice you need. But, good agents are worth their salt, so good agents will really, really help out good buyers with what they should do, where they should do it, and the process.
I think that's the same in anything, isn't it? It's good bricklayers and there's bad bricklayers, and you just got to find the right kind of people, and if you can deal with them and they can look after you, build those bonds, then you're going to be, the whole process is going to be a lot more smoother, where you can have your hand held or whatever. Mario, final little point?
Yeah, no, just do your research, whether it's on the financial services side, what mortgage, and also on the conveyancing side, just, choose the right lawyer that's going to do the right type of service for you, the right journey that you want to have. So, if you work 9 to 5, and taking a day off work is going to be difficult, then, try and use a conveyancing service which is a bit more remote, and you can do things in your own time, as Royden said earlier on, late into the evening. And as I said, there are firms like ourselves out there, we're cutting edge, we're ahead of the game on it, so look no further than us, but there are other firms out there.
Fantastic. That's been really interesting, guys. Nice being with you and speaking to you. As I say, I think first-time buyers have got a lot to think about. It's not as straightforward as it used to be. What you're really saying, I suppose, en masse is that when first-time buyers are making these decisions, it's not just first-time buyers, it's their family, everyone's involved, be it just on the decision side of things, but also, as Mario's saying, it could be involved dotting the I's and crossing the T's these days. It's a far more interesting and more diverse subject. Thank you for everyone listening. I hope you've enjoyed that programme, and we shall look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
The Property Show was brought to you by Thomas Oliver. Outstanding financial services. No confusions, just solutions.
Thomas Oliver, a representative of Openwork, prides itself on high-caliber quality service, with our senior advisor Vishal Gurajani at the forefront. Whether you're seeking advice on a mortgage, life insurance, or a pension, we have the solutions for you. At Thomas Oliver, our financial advisors have a collective experience of over 100 years in the industry. We go above and beyond, trying to meet our clients' requirements in achieving their desired outcome in a friendly and efficient manner. Thomas Oliver is shortlisted for this year's Estas Awards as a mortgage advisor. Thomas Oliver, with branch offices across North London, East London, Hertfordshire and Essex. For further information, please call 01707 872 000 or visit thomasoliveruk.co.uk. Thomas Oliver, outstanding financial services. Regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.